here today with the Fairy Hugs video design team to make a card with you, and I have a few tips and tricks to show you along the way. So to get started, I am going to be using these two stamps from Fairy Hugs, and I have already opened them up so that they're ready to use. And this one is Estrella, and this is Fantasy Flowers. So I'm going to set those off to the side. We'll be using those in a few minutes. We're going to be making a 4x6 card. So I have my card base here, and I am just going to set that off because that's one of the last things we're going to use. And then I have the piece of cardstock that we're going to be working on. So to begin with, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do some ink blending on top of this with a stencil with leaves. So I'm just going to place this on here. We're going to use Distressed Oxide in Iced Spruce and Weathered Wood. So to start, we're just going to take one with a blending brush and just tapping some ink on here, and then I am just going to go over these leaves. And what I want here is kind of a variegated look to it. So in some areas I want it darker and some areas lighter. So just kind of a messy blending technique, if you will. So we're going to go over it with these two colors. So this is the first, and my thing is moving on me. That's okay, because what we're doing here is just creating a visual background. Okay, so there's the first, and you can see how that's blended and variegated. And then I'm going to go using Weathered Wood, using my same brush, but I'm going to move my stencil so that they're in a little bit different location. Alright, so holding that just down in place. If you're more comfortable with taping it down or using a little spray adhesive to hold your stencil down, definitely do whatever works for you and that you're most comfortable with. Alright, so I'm almost done here with the blending. Just going a little bit darker on the edges, or some of the edges anyway. Alright, now for this next step, you see that there's still some ink here on my stencil. And what I'm going to do is bring in a wet baby wipe. Once again, I'm going to place that stencil again in a different direction, trying to cover as much space as I can here, and maybe getting some white areas. Alright, now I'm going to take my wet baby wipe, work the stencil by picking up, you can see I'm picking up that color, and then I'm going to lightly go into those leaf shapes. So now I'm getting a third layer. You can see I'm getting a third layer of leaves. But what the wet baby wipe is doing, and it's a very moist baby wipe, and I'll show you here in a second, what it's doing is giving a tie-dye effect to those leaves. There's some thing with the soap in the baby wipe that makes that happen. So let me lift this up to show you. Can you see the three different effects there? And then lastly, I'm just going to take my brush and kind of go over the edges just to kind of darken them in. You could pick up some more ink if you feel you need to, just stamp off to the side a little bit. And so I'm just trying to give the edges here some definition. Alright, so what we're just doing here is creating a background for our stamping from a white piece of cardstock. I am not working with media or mixed media paper, but that could work. Give you a little bit different look to it. Watercolor paper would give you a different texture to it as well. Alright, so I think that looks pretty good. I want to go just a little bit darker down here because this is going to be the bottom of my card. Alright, so that looks good. I'm going to stick my stencil and my ink off to the side here. clean off my stamp mechanism. This is the works board, and I'm just using the stamping platform to work on my blending. And then all that ink I just picked up there, I'm going to go into the top here and just kind of give it a light little wash along the top. Alright, now if you feel like your cardstock is a little too damp, you can give it some drying time, or you can hit it with a heat gun if you'd like. I'm going to place mine here ready to stamp, and let me grab my magnets to hold it in place. And the first stamp we're going to do is the fairy. And what we want to do is place her kind of central on the paper, and we want her to be kind of misty and in the background, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do here is stamp her in gray. So I'm just going to pick her up here and try not to move my cardstock too much. Just make sure there I've got her. Okay. So I am going to stamp her with London Fog from Memento, and this is a gray colored ink. It's going to be very similar to the greens, and so I may find that I need to stamp her a few times to get the depth that I'm looking for. But I do want her to appear kind of misty and in the distance. So we'll stamp her down, give her a press, and see how she's looking. Not bad. I'm going to go over her one more time just to make sure that I've got a good image. Okay, so make sure we're lined up still. Give her a good press. Leave it on there for a second or two so that the ink transfers to the paper. Alright, and we're going to call that done for this. Now I can see that she has a few spots in here that are speckled. I'm going to give you another tip here that I have found working with a cotton swab. You're going to go into your ink pad, okay, pick up your ink, and then just fill in those areas to get a little more depth. I could use my stamp again. I think what I'm doing here is picking up some of the moisture from my stamping. And so what I might do here is actually use a heat gun tool just to make sure that I have this dry. Alright, so I apologize for the noise in advance. Set that off to the side there, and you can see that that ink blended in rather nicely. So I'm going to bring my smooth surface back over here so that I can work on it. And the next thing I'm going to do is color in her wings. And what I have here are 3 different colors of Spectrum Noir colored pencil. I've just got kind of a tan, a yellow, and an orange. And so I'm just going to go in and build up these wings in colored pencil. This tan looks a little bit more yellow than tan, but I'm just going in and coloring her wings and using a circular motion as I color, and I'm pressing a little bit hard because I do want to build up some of that wax pencil. I'm going to be blending the 3 colors together. I'm going to go to the outer edge with the orange because that's going to be the brightest. And then yes, you can see through her wings because wings are transparent, so we can see the texture that's going on behind her. And I may come back with this orange after I use the yellow here to fill in the middle part. So you can see there's a lot of yellow, and I think I'm going to want a little bit more orange blending in with that yellow pencil. Let me pick up that orange and get those edges to glow a little bit nicer for me, and bring some of that orange further in. Alright, I'll set those aside and put this back into my stamping platform with my magnets closer to the top. Next thing we're going to do is stamp our little plants, and what we want to do is create a look that she is walking in the garden behind the plants. Okay, so she is, like I said, off in the mist. Kind of want to place these in a manner that makes her look like she's in a forest. I'm going to pick up those stamps. Try not to lift up. Okay, good. Try not to lift up my paper. And now I'm going to go in with some intense black ink on these. And these probably only need to be stamped once. Get a good transfer of ink. So I like where those are. Just going to give it a good push. If you have one of those tools, those buddies that push down on your ink, that can work well here. And let's see. Okay, I like what I've got. This guy needs to be pushed down a little bit. Okay, that's working. And then I am just going to grab my wet baby wipe that was dirty and kind of clean off the ink here. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to stamp these again in a different location. So I want to be able to lay them down onto a piece. I don't know if I want duplicates near each other. Let's see what we can do here. I think I'm going to want maybe we want this big one over here going off. Put this little one down in this space here. And I just don't know if we need another one or not, because they're so similar to each other. I think I'm just going to go with those two. So I'm going to pick those up with my stamping platform, ink them up, not going down the stem too far because I know that I don't need to stamp a lot of these onto the front. And give it a good push. Just give it a few seconds for the ink to transfer. Alright, I think that's going to be it for our stamping. Now I'm just going to stick these on here so that we can move on. Once again, my magnets off of here, I am going to use that baby wipe and just kind of clean up my ink. I'll come back in and clean that up better later. Alright, so now I'm going to be working on this smooth surface again here, and I am going to go into her wings with a little bit of aqua shimmer, and this is a Nuvo pen, and it is gold. You could do this, you could use Wink of Stella, whichever works for you. But I'm gonna give her wings a little extra attention here and attempt to not pick up any of that black ink. So we really want these wings to sparkle for us, and I think that's looking good. I do have a Wink of Stella also, so I'm just gonna take that in here as well and see if that adds any more sparkle. Alright, now to finish this off, I am going to spray this with a little bit of gold shimmer spray. And I have made my own gold shimmer spray, and I will link to how to make this in the description below. But I'm just going to take this off into a spray booth, or a spray pan actually. Let me take off a project here. Alright, I'll put it in here and just do this in front of you. Okay, so I've mixed up my shimmer, and I'm just going to give it a nice little blast over the card. And this actually has hairspray in it, and so it has a really nice scent as I'm sitting here waiting for this to dry. And hopefully up close you can see the sparkle and the dots that I'm getting from that spray. Okay, so once again I'm just going to hit this with my heat tool. And get my card to flatten out there. Alright, last couple of steps just to finalize this piece, and what I am going to use here is a little sticker that I've made out of sticker paper that says here and now. You could use any of these sayings or whatever seems appropriate to you. I kind of like this one, and I'm just going to cut it with a pair of scissors. And then, okay, it is not perfectly cut, and I am okay with that. I kind of like how that looks when it's kind of imperfect. All right, now we're going to take that, stick it down to a piece of gold Rhenia foil paper. Let me grab my glue here. Sorry if it's glaring at the camera at you. But, oh, actually I don't need the glue for this step because I told you that this was a sticker actually. So all I need to do here is peel back the sticker paper. I have two versions printed out here that I use, and one is the sticker and one is cardstock. So this one that I'm using here is the sticker. So I'm going to stick that down so they have a nice little border around the sticker. And then I'm going to take my scissors and cut that out. Once again, the imperfection of my cut I find interesting and relates to the image. So now while I have this here, what I'm going to do is cut out a piece that is 4 by 6 of my Rhenia foil. So I just need to go over to the 4 inches and cut. Make sure this piece is 6, and it is. And now I'm going to bring in my card base, and we're getting ready to finish everything up here. So I'm going to take my sentiment here, and just add a little bit of tacky glue onto the back. It doesn't need a lot. And I am going to stick that down to the front of my card, right about here. Once again, if it's not perfectly straight, I really don't mind the imperfection of it. Alright, then for the back of this card, I'm going to just go around the outer edge here with a little bit of adhesive. Once again, you don't need a lot. And I'm going to visually center this on my foil background. Now you can see everything starting to come together with the gold and the foil. And the last thing we have to do here is attach it to the front of our card base. You could use adhesive, you could use double stick tape, whatever works for you the best. So I like to stand my cards up and make sure everything's aligned perfectly before I really give it a good push to make sure everything is touched down. If you end up with a little bit of glue on the foil paper, you can just clean that off with your wet baby wipe. I was using a dry one there, it didn't work. And there we have our finished card.